Step out of the car. Now. The command cracked through the air as two officers yanked the door open and pulled Marcus Reed onto the hot asphalt. A knee pressed into his back. Gravel scraped his cheek. His arms were wrenched behind him, metal cuffs snapping tight around his wrists. "I didn't do anything," Marcus shouted, his voice sharp with panic. "You've got the wrong guy." A crowd had already formed on the sidewalk. Phones were up. Someone muttered, "Is that him?" Another voice said, "Looks like him." That was all it took. "Stop resisting," an officer said, even though Marcus had gone still. Minutes earlier, he'd been driving home from work, windows down, radio low. Now his heart hammered so hard it hurt. The accusation came fast: armed robbery at a nearby pharmacy. Suspect fled in a dark sedan. Same street. Same timing. Marcus was shoved against the patrol car. An officer leaned close. "Where's the gun?" "I don't have a gun," Marcus said, breathless. "Search me." They did. Pockets emptied onto the hood. Wallet. Keys. A folded receipt. No weapon. No stolen cash. The tension shifted, just slightly. Another officer approached, holding a radio. "Witness says the suspect had a neck tattoo. Big one." Marcus froze. "I don't have any tattoos," he said quietly. The officer grabbed his chin, turning his head left, then right. "Bare skin. No ink." A long pause followed. The crowd murmured. The pressure on Marcus's back eased. Finally, the cuffs came off. "Looks like a mistake," the officer said, already stepping away. "You're free to go." Free. Marcus stood there, wrists burning, knees shaking, trying to understand how his life had almost cracked open. No apology. No explanation. As he reached for his wallet, a woman in the crowd stared at him, eyes wide. "Wait," she whispered. "That's not." A police radio suddenly blared. "Hold up," a voice said urgently. "Run that name again." Marcus looked up. Whatever they had just realized, it came too late. And if you're still listening, thank you for staying with this moment, because what happens next changes everything. "Sir, Marcus Reed." "Stay right there." The voice snapped Marcus out of his daze. He had taken 3 steps away from the patrol car when an officer rushed toward him, hand hovering near his belt. The crowd leaned in again. Phones rose higher. Marcus's stomach dropped. "You just said I was free," he said, keeping his hands visible. "What's going on?" "We need you to wait," the officer said, breath quick. "Just wait." The radio crackled with overlapping voices. Codes Marcus didn't understand. Urgency he definitely did. For a split second, he thought they were about to cuff him again. His muscles tensed, ready for the wait, the pressure, the humiliation all over. But it didn't come. Instead, a senior officer stepped forward, older, calmer. "Mr. Reed," he said, slower now, "where are you coming from tonight?" "Work," Marcus answered. "I'm a facilities supervisor at Mercy General. I clocked out at 6. I can show you." "That won't be necessary," the officer said, holding up a hand. That confused Marcus more than the shouting had. The crowd began to thin as the tension eased again. Someone scoffed. Someone else muttered, "They always do this." Marcus caught the words but didn't respond. He just wanted to go home. His wrists still ached. His throat felt tight, like he'd swallowed something sharp. The officer handed him back his wallet. "You can sit on the curb while we sort something out." Marcus sat. The heat of the pavement soaked through his pants. His hands shook now that the adrenaline was fading. He thought about his daughter waiting for him, probably wondering why he was late. Thought about how close this had come to ruining everything. A police cruiser pulled up fast and stopped hard. A new officer stepped out, holding a tablet. He looked at Marcus. Then looked again. His face changed. He said carefully, turning to the others. "You might want to see this." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Because whatever they were seeing now, it wasn't about a robbery anymore. "Stand him up," the senior officer said sharply. The command hit Marcus like a punch. 2 officers moved closer. Not rough this time, but not gentle either. The sudden shift made his pulse spike again. Just minutes ago they'd let him go. Now every eye was back on him. "What is this?" Marcus asked. "You said I was free." The officer with the tablet swallowed. We just got additional information." Marcus stood slowly, every movement careful. He'd learned that already tonight. They stepped a few feet away from the crowd. The noise dulled. The air felt heavier. The tablet was turned toward the senior officer. Marcus couldn't see the screen, but he saw the reaction. Brows tightening, jaw setting, a sharp inhale through the nose. "That's him?" the senior officer asked. "Yes, sir," the younger officer said. "Name matches. Photo matches. Cleared background, but there's a flag." Marcus felt cold creep up his spine. A flag for what? No one answered him right away. The senior officer finally looked at Marcus again, but this time differently. Less suspicion. More calculation. "Mr. Reed," he said, "you ever work with law enforcement before?" Marcus hesitated. "Not like this." "That's not what I asked." Marcus exhaled. "I've testified. Once. Years ago. That did it." The officer's eyes flicked back to the tablet. "Witness protection." Marcus's heart slammed. "I don't talk about that." The silence stretched. Even the radios seemed to quiet. The younger officer cursed under his breath. "We let him go before we confirmed." Marcus stared at them. "Confirmed what?" The senior officer's voice dropped. "Who you really are." Marcus's knees went weak, not from fear this time, but from understanding. The robbery. The mistake. The release. They hadn't just detained the wrong man. They had almost exposed the right one. And if you're wondering why that matters so much, stay with this, because the reason changes everything. Clear the area. Now. The order came fast, sharp, and final. Officers suddenly moved with purpose, pushing the remaining bystanders back. Someone complained. Someone filmed anyway. An officer stepped in front of the lens. Marcus stood frozen as the tone around him changed completely. No more confusion. No more casual mistakes. This was control. The senior officer leaned in, lowering his voice. "Marcus, listen carefully. You are not under arrest. But you are not free to leave either." Marcus let out a short, humorless breath. "That sounds a lot like being detained." The officer didn't argue. "For your safety." They guided Marcus, not roughly, but firmly, into the back seat of an unmarked car. No cuffs this time. The door closed with a heavy thud that made his chest tighten anyway. Inside, the noise of the street faded. For the first time since the stop, there was quiet. Marcus stared out the window, hands clenched in his lap. The heat. The smell of leather. The steady hum of the engine. It all felt too familiar. "I told them not to flag my name publicly," Marcus said after a moment. The officer in the front seat nodded. "I know. It shouldn't have happened." "But it did," Marcus replied. Silence again. After a few blocks, the officer spoke more softly. "You saved lives back then. That trial put away people who don't forget faces." Marcus closed his eyes. He hadn't forgotten either. The threats. The relocation. The promise that his identity would be protected. "I built a quiet life," Marcus said. "That's all I wanted." "And you had it," the officer said. "Until tonight." The car slowed near a secure building. Marcus felt his pulse ease just slightly. This was manageable. This was procedure. Then the radio crackled. "Be advised," a voice said urgently, robbery suspect still at large. Witness reports he asked about a man named Marcus at the scene. Marcus's eyes snapped open. The officer turned slowly. "They didn't realize who you were," he said grimly. "But now," he added, "someone else does." The car stopped suddenly, tires scraping against the curb. Marcus's body reacted before his mind could catch up. His shoulders tensed. His breath shortened. Every instinct screamed that stopping meant exposure. "Out," the officer said quickly. We're moving you inside. The door opened and Marcus stepped into a secure underground garage. Concrete. Cameras. 2 more officers waiting. No one raised a voice, but everything felt urgent, compressed. They walked him through a side entrance and into a small office with no windows. The door shut. The lock clicked. For the first time since the stop, Marcus was alone with his thoughts. His hands trembled as he sat. Not fear, anger. Sharp, controlled, buried deep. He had done everything right. Changed his name. Moved cities. Stayed invisible. One traffic stop had almost undone years of careful silence. A different officer entered, younger, nervous. He placed a bottle of water on the table. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "What happened out there? It shouldn't have." Marcus didn't answer at first. Then, "They put me on the ground." The officer nodded. "I know." Minutes passed. The room cooled. Marcus's breathing slowed. He thought about his daughter again. About how she still believed the world was mostly fair. The door opened. The senior officer returned, face tight. "We confirmed it. The robbery suspect wasn't after drugs or cash." Marcus looked up. "Then why?" The officer hesitated. "He was looking for leverage." A pause. "He recognized you," the officer continued. "Didn't know from where at first. But once you were detained, he made a call." Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. "To who?" The officer met his eyes. "Someone connected to the case you testified in." The room felt smaller. "And here's the problem," the officer added. "We let you go before we realized that." Marcus leaned back slowly. Because now, the people he had disappeared from might finally know where to find him. The alarm sounded without warning. Not loud, controlled, but sharp enough to jolt everyone in the room into motion. Red text flashed on a small monitor above the door. Marcus didn't need to ask what it meant. He'd seen that look before. Something had gone wrong. "Change of plan," the senior officer said, "already moving. We're relocating you." "No." Marcus stood, pulse climbing again. "Did they find me?" "They found something," the officer replied. "We don't know how much." They moved fast through a back corridor, shoes echoing against concrete. Doors opened with keycards. Closed just as quickly. Marcus focused on breathing, keeping his face calm even as his chest tightened. "You said the flag wasn't supposed to be public," Marcus said as they walked. "It wasn't," the officer answered. "But when we ran the robbery check, an automated system pulled archived testimony records. That should never happen." "So someone saw my old name," Marcus said. "Yes." They reached another vehicle, this one already running. Marcus was guided into the back seat again. Still no cuffs. Still not free. As the car pulled away, the officer turned slightly. "For what it's worth, letting you go wasn't negligence. Based on what we had, it was the right call." Marcus stared out the window. "It almost got me killed." The officer didn't argue. The radio crackled again. "We've got an update," a voice said. "Robbery suspect is in custody." Marcus's shoulders loosened, just a little. But the relief didn't last. "Before arrest," the voice continued, "suspect sent a photo from his phone. It appears to show Mr. Reed during the detainment." The car went silent. The officer's jaw tightened. "Where did he send it?" A pause. "Unknown contact," the dispatcher said. But the message included a name. Marcus closed his eyes. Because that name was one he hadn't heard spoken aloud in years. And if you're thinking this can't possibly get worse, stay with it. Because it does. "Say the name," Marcus said quietly. No one answered him at first. The car rolled through an intersection, sunlight flashing across the dashboard like nothing in the world had changed. The officer in the front seat finally spoke. "Evan Cole." Marcus's throat tightened. Evan Cole had been the reason Marcus entered witness protection in the first place. Not the biggest name in the case, but the most patient. The one who never rushed, never threatened outright. The one who promised, calmly, that time would take care of things. Marcus had believed he was gone. Locked away. Neutralized. Apparently, he'd been wrong. The car slowed as they approached another secured location. Marcus's mind raced, not with fear, but with calculation. Evan didn't need Marcus dead. Not yet. Exposure alone could do enough damage. They stopped. Doors opened. Marcus was escorted inside, again. This room was different. Larger. Brighter. A conference table. Screens on the wall. A woman in a suit waited inside. She stood when Marcus entered. "Marcus Reed," she said. "My name is Dana Brooks. U.S. Marshals Service." Marcus nodded once. "So this is federal now." "It always was," Dana said. "Tonight just reminded us." She tapped a remote. One of the screens lit up, showing the photo the robbery suspect had sent. Marcus, face down on the asphalt. Officers around him. Clear. Identifiable. "Evan Cole received this," Dana said. 3 minutes before the suspect was arrested. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Then he knows I'm alive." "Yes," Dana said. "But he also thinks you were released by mistake." Marcus looked at her. "You're going to use that?" Dana met his gaze. "We already are." She changed the screen. Another image appeared, security footage of Evan Cole entering a federal building earlier that day. Marcus stiffened. "He came out of hiding," Dana said. "Because of you." The room went quiet. Because the mistake that almost destroyed Marcus's life had just handed law enforcement the one thing they'd been missing. Evan Cole was finally visible. And now, everything depended on what Marcus did next. "Evan Cole is in custody." The words cut through the room like a held breath finally released. Marcus stood still as Dana Brooks lowered her phone. Around them, quiet movement, agents nodding, someone exhaling hard, another chair scraping back. The tension that had wrapped itself around his chest for hours finally loosened. "They arrested him 20 minutes ago," Dana said. "He walked into the federal building thinking he had leverage. That photo made him confident." Marcus let out a slow breath. His hands were steady now. "So letting me go made him move," Dana finished. "Yes." For a moment, no one spoke. The chaos of the night, the pavement against his cheek, the cuffs, the crowd, the release that came seconds too soon, all of it replayed in fragments. What had felt like careless injustice had turned into the one mistake Evan Cole couldn't ignore. Dana stepped closer. "You're safe. We'll relocate you again." Quietly. This time, with tighter controls. Marcus nodded. "What about the robbery?" Suspect confessed. "Unrelated," she said. "You were exactly what you said you were. An innocent man in the wrong place." Marcus almost laughed, but the sound didn't come. Innocent hadn't protected him earlier. A system error had nearly exposed him. And yet, they let him go. Then realized who he really was. Dana opened the door. Sunlight filled the hallway, normal, bright, almost unfairly calm. As Marcus walked out, he passed an officer from the traffic stop. The man hesitated, then spoke. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Marcus nodded once. No anger. No speech. Just acknowledgement. Outside, a vehicle waited. A new life, again. Safer this time. As the door closed behind him, Marcus looked forward, not back. And if this story held you until the end, subscribe and share it. Because sometimes the truth doesn't explode loudly. Sometimes it moves when no one is watching, and changes everything.